Kennedy family is the closest thing to American royalty, and the Crown Prince was John F. Kennedy Jr. From his childhood salute at his father's funeral to his death in a tragic plane crash, he was always in the spotlight. Now his personal assistant is breaking years of silence in her new book, Fairy Tale Interrupted, a memoir of life, love and loss. And RoseMarie Terenzio joins me now. RoseMarie Terenzio, it's a very personal book, very moving in many places.
Yeah.
Tell me why you decided after all this time to write it.
Well, I had done an interview, a TV interview in 2009 about John's charity, Reaching Up. It was the 20-year anniversary, and I had been approached to do an interview about it, so I did. And there was sort of a renewed interest, and I started to get approached again about the possibility of, telling the story and telling the stories of, how we met and the girl from the Bronx and the whole, sort of mismatched friendship that developed.
The passage in the book where you hear of his death is particularly moving because you can't really believe it. You refuse to believe it at the time. You're getting all these messages from people saying how sorry they are, but you're determined somehow for this not to be true. Describe to me what it was like this, because obviously for the world it was this huge shock. For you, personally, an incredible blow.
It was devastating because it wasn't just about, it wasn't just about losing, your boss or your job. It was about losing three people actually, that I was very close to and I had a very close friendship with. And I think because I always felt that John was sort of my protector, my sort of older brother, it was frightening in a way. It was frightening to think of what it would be like without him.
And there are these sort of unsavory details about the funeral where people are still jostling for a good position and all that kind of thing. What did that tell you about the nature of, I don't know, modern celebrity, modern politics, and the way that people would stoop so low?
I think, I think that people had this sort of desire to feel very close to John because there were so many people, who were vying for attention from him, that I think it was important, he was important to enough people that they just really wanted to feel close to him. And they wanted to feel like they knew him really well.
Yeah, John and Carolyn, they started dating at the time that you began working for him.
Yes.
So you were in a unique position to watch how that relationship unfolded. And I guess the mythology is that she found it very, very difficult to be suddenly the subject of the public gaze. How would you describe the relationship as you saw it develop? Well,
as I saw it develop, they sort of started out, they had this little camaraderie. They were friends, they were friends, they were buddies. They laughed together and they gossiped together and they were, they obviously socialized together, but they were friends. They seemed comfortable around each other and they liked being around each other.
But did she find it tough, do you think, being in the public gaze?
Initially, I think it was very difficult because once they got married, it somehow amped up. The attention amped up and the paparazzi became, more vigilant. And I think that was surprising to her because when they were dating, it was kind of doable. It was kind of bearable. It was sort of sometimes even amusing to her. But for some reason, once they got married, it really got worse.
Let's have a little break and come back and talk about politics and how you think the John F. Kennedy Jr. story would have developed if he'd stayed alive. What he'd be doing now.
Okay.
An intense search is underway off the coast of Long Island, stretching all the way up to Massachusetts this morning, as there are reports now that the private plane, apparently in which John F. Kennedy Jr. was flying, perhaps even piloting, has gone missing.
John and Carolyn's plane crashed on July the 16th, 1999, another tragedy in the Kennedy family. RoseMarie Terenzio, John's personal assistant, author of Fairy Tale Interrupted, is back with me now. You had this awful task of having to plan the funeral with Caroline Kennedy. Tell me about that.
It was a time when I had to behave as though he were still there, as though my job was continuing in a way. And even though it was awful and a dreadful situation, I felt, in a sense, a duty to him to keep going and to make to help his sister and to do what I would do if he were there.
Have you stayed in touch with the family at all?
I mean, I see Caroline from time to time at events or at restaurants, and it's always really nice to see her. I mean, we don't stay in touch on a regular basis, but I certainly, when I do see her, it's really pleasant.
I mean, do you know how they've reacted to the book, the family?
No, I don't, and I didn't put it out there to anyone, not even my own sisters. They have to buy it, they haven't read it yet. So I felt that if I had too many eyes on it, it might change the way it turned out, and I'm really proud of the way it turned out.
And what do you think John would have been doing now if he'd been alive in terms of his political career? Because he was on a real fast track. Everybody had these great hopes for him, which were all snuffed away. What do you think he would have been doing?
Well, he certainly talked about running for office at some point, but I know that he was enthusiastic and excited and wanted George magazine to succeed before he went on to his next venture. And given the state of politics now, I mean, politicians are now celebrities, so I think it was an idea that was ahead of its time. We would have been having a lot of fun right now.
Yeah, and what will your lasting memory be of him?
Well, I think, the legacy he left, that was, unfortunately, George, what I learned from him, I think, all the amazing things that I learned from him, about manners, about people, about media, and he was a great mentor, he was a great teacher. And, he always said, nothing is as good or as bad as the current situation will have you believe, so. Well, he's a remarkable man and had a remarkable life, albeit a very short one. RoseMarie